It's not unusual for owners of privately held businesses with revenues in excess of $5 to $6 million to get unsolicited offers to purchase their business. And most of the time, they're just business brokers or merger and acquisition advisors looking to find listings to bring to market, and they may actually have a pool of buyers that are looking in that segment. The other group of buyers that you run into are private equity and portfolio groups. And in this video, we're going to talk specifically about those two groups and how you as an owner should handle that. So if you're an owner and you've gotten a call from a private equity or portfolio group, stick around because I guarantee you'll find this video interesting. As always, if you've got questions as we go through today's presentation, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Or drop me an email and we'll set up a time to discuss your topic or whatever's on your mind. So with that, let's talk about private equity and portfolio groups. Now, private equity and portfolio groups, the number one thing you should understand is they are professional buyers and sellers of businesses. Their whole business model is driven off of a return on investment. And in order to do that, they usually are looking for businesses where they can buy at or below market, invest capital, management structure, or in some cases they've got other businesses they can put together with it, and then sell at or above market value in, say, 7 years plus or minus. So the other thing you need to understand is that in 90% of the private equity transactions that I've been involved with, they're requiring the seller to actually hold anywhere from 10 to 30% of the business. And on top of that, they're going to probably restrict the seller's ability to convert that equity rollover to cash. Most of the time, they require you to hold your equity position in the new company or in the company that you've just sold and exit when they exit. So you're becoming a business partner. You've taken your company where you were either the sole owner or majority owner, and now you're a minority owner. They may ask you to stay on and work in the business. I see that quite a bit, especially with younger founders or owners where they're still driving that business. And over a period of time, they may replace you with a CEO or new president in order to get the business ready to sell at a future date. Now, other things you should understand about professional buyers is when they're negotiating a letter of intent or purchase agreement, they're looking to defer as much of the risk in the transaction to you. So this kind of leads us to why you as an owner, when approached by a professional buyer like a private equity or portfolio group, should seriously consider hiring a merger and acquisition advisor or skilled business broker immediately to help you through this transaction. So let's talk about why you, at a 50,000 foot level, should hire a professional advisor. At a 50,000 foot level, once you've told the private equity group that you've hired a trusted advisor, a merger and acquisition advisor to represent them, you're going to see a shift in their behavior. They'll still be just as friendly as always. However, they know they're now dealing with a professional that's going to give you some advice that they probably didn't want you to have. One, what the fair market value for your business is, and two, help you guide through some exit planning exercises to see if you're actually ready to sell your business and move into retirement or whatever the next stage of life is. The other thing an M&A advisor is going to help you do is prep the business for sale. I've just seen this way too many times where a private equity group expresses interest in a company, that company responds, and they give them a generic list of items that they'd like to see. They put that together and send it to them. The private equity group reviews it, and then the next 4 lists come out. That's not a way to go through due diligence and discovery. What you need to do is really take a look at what the fair market value is, and you can get that from your advisor, and the net equity, and also go through that exit planning. At that point, you want to put a data room together, put an offering memorandum together, have your attorney or the advisor provide you with a non-disclosure agreement, and or probably maybe pull in some other trusted advisors to handle this transaction. So it's a team effort, and letting a private equity and portfolio group know that you now have the proper representations, going to back them up a little bit. If they're still interested, they will pursue you, but it gives you an opportunity to be on a level playing field with a group of professionals. Remember, they're professional buyers. So you want to make sure that you go into this transaction fully represented and getting the most and best deal that you possibly can put together. At this point, you have hired a merger and acquisition advisor to guide you through this process. And after looking at an exit plan, maybe dealing with a financial planner, and having the broker or merger and acquisition advisor walk you through a market range valuation and a net equity calculation, the next decision that you'll be probably asked to make is, do you go to market either on a broad basis or a controlled basis with a limited amount of potential buyers, or do you just continue dealing with the private equity or portfolio group? 9 times out of 10 with my clients, we usually go at least to a controlled market offering where we're asking for a request for proposal. And the reason is that 2 offers or multiple offers give you as a seller the opportunity not only to take a look at the deal structures that everybody else have put on the table, but also the buyers. I know for a lot of business owners, who buys their business is almost as important, or can in some instances be more important, than the price and the terms that they're receiving at closing. Now, once you've made that decision, the next process piece, and this is where an advisor is going to earn their money, and that's really in negotiating the letter of intent. Not only do you start with the price, but also the terms. A good advisor is going to be able to do a working capital calculation for you on your business. And a working capital calculation is really important because if you have excess capital or working capital in the business, this is one of those negotiating parts as to where that capital comes with you or stays with the business. And it could be a fairly large amount. The next piece is really the equity rollover or a seller note. Now, as I talked about earlier, a lot of the private equity or portfolio groups will ask you to keep anywhere from 10 to 30% of the company. Obviously, that's an easier way for them to acquire a company at a lesser price or lesser infusion of capital, gain control of the company, and be able to sell that over a period of time. But understanding the equity rollover piece versus a seller note and what it means to you down the road is important. transitional training, and a consulting agreement. Now, the private equity group may ask you to stay on board for a year or two as president or CEO, especially if you've rolled over 10, 20, or 30% of your equity into the business. And that's okay. If that fits your personal goal, then that's fine. Just make sure you get a market compensation and a nice compensation package, incentive package on top of it. But the thing that you as a seller have to understand is you're now working for somebody else, where before you called all the shots. Maybe you had a board of advisors, maybe you talked to your spouse, but you're the one in charge. From there, you'll be asked to sign a non-compete agreement. And that's pretty standard. The thing you'll probably want to negotiate is when you leave the company, what the sunset clause is on that agreement. If you're 65 years older or older and you're just going to go play more golf and spend more time with the grandkids, really doesn't matter, but it's still something you need to work through. Now, in part of the LOI, they're going to put in what's called a quiet period, which is usually a 60 to 90 day period where they're going through due diligence, the private equity group, and you're not allowed to talk to anybody else with regards to entertaining a sale. So for that period of time, unless you terminate the transaction, you're pretty well tied up in just that discovery period. And talking about discovery, that data room that your merger and acquisition advisor help you put together is going to become invaluable for a couple reasons. One, putting a robust data room together and then selecting a data room that has controls in it to where you can monitor the ins and outs of everybody coming in and looking at documents can be very valuable down the road, especially when you're talking about reps and warrants. And I'll talk about that in a second. From there, you're really looking at negotiating the buyer and seller conditions. They're going to put conditions in there, that you're going to have to meet, and your advisor may advise you to put conditions in that they're going to have to meet. Proof of funding, source of funds, other things that are going to make sure that you've got a legitimate buyer, and that when it comes time to close, they can actually close the transaction. Reps and warrants. Now, this is, again, one of those things where in a lot of LOIs, it's a pretty small negotiation, and they're going to leave that up to the attorneys to negotiate in the purchase and sale agreement. But in some letters of intent, the representations, reps and warrants, are broken down between fundamental reps and standard reps and can get into some detail. And that's where a good advisor, knowing reps and warranties, can really help you and your attorney along the way. Now, fundamental rep is basically a rep that says you own the business, you have all the documentation to prove that you're the owner, the business is in good standing as a corporation. So that's one set of reps and warrants. The others are standard. It may be tied to inventory, for instance, that you're representing that the $1.5 million in inventory is good and saleable, and they go in and find out that there's only $1 million. Well, there's some adjustment to the transaction for that extra half. So this details how that's going to work. Again, a good M&A advisor can help walk you through and negotiate this. And then lastly, one of the ones that's kind of overlooked a lot is the knowledge qualifier. So what we always try to do is basically put in a letter of intent the knowledge qualifier that says to the best of the seller's knowledge. Now, that basically is the lowest bar, and it basically says is if you had knowledge to the best of your knowledge, then you should have disclosed it. If there's actual knowledge or reasonable knowledge, Those are different levels of a knowledge qualifier, and those goes back to the reps and warrants. So going through that letter of intent and negotiating the price and terms, working capital, equity rollover versus a seller note, transitional period, non-compete, due diligence, quiet period, buy-sell condition, reps and warranties, and a knowledge qualifier. If you've not done it before, remember the people sitting on the other side of the table do this all day long. And you want to make sure that it's fair to both sides. So hiring a merger and acquisition advisor to go through these and represent you in a sale, you can see from this long list that that knowledge level is really important and that you need to be represented. As you can see, when dealing with a private equity or portfolio group, they are professional buyers. And that's good. That's their business model. That's what they do. You have a business, you run your business, and you're really good at it. And you want to make sure that you have the proper representation to be as good as the people that are trying to buy your business, especially when dealing with a private equity or portfolio group. A good advisor is going to walk you through a lot of different decision points and do it where they're presenting you with good data for you to make the appropriate financial and life decisions as you move forward thinking about selling your business. I hope this video helped, especially if you've been approached by a private equity or portfolio group. And if so, please consider hitting the like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.